I was never high on the Suns, but I would say styles make fights, and it could be interesting if the Suns and Nuggets match up because maybe you could go some small ball, KD playing the five, stretch Jokic out. Who knows? There's actually like a backstory with Nurkic and Jokic, right? Like they were both in Denver. Jokic kind of took his spot. Maybe there's some added motivation there. Is the Suns the Nuggets kryptonite?
So here's the thing. They have some distinct advantages, and those are like Kevin Durant, when he's making his pull-up jump shot, can get shots off over Aaron Gordon. And then Nurkic is big and strong enough to at least prevent Jokic from just burying him under the basket every single time. And I honestly had some success on the offensive glass in that matchup the other day as well. They also have, just like you've talked about, just like the sheer amount of like speed on the perimeter to put some of these Denver players into space.
Yep.
Here's the thing. I tend to think that if we really zoom in on what happened in that game the other night, the Suns came out guns blazing. Grayson Allen makes 8 straight threes to start the game, right? And the Nuggets, a little bit lax. Jokic is not being very aggressive. It has a bunch of turnovers. We're middle third quarter, and the Nuggets kind of hit the gas. And from there, they methodically outplayed Phoenix the rest of the game. Yeah. And through that stretch, like what happened in that fourth quarter? Like KD got the same shots that he got in OT, but he missed them. Because here's the thing, like when you take tough pull-up jump shots, sometimes you make 2-3 in a row, sometimes you miss 2-3 in a row, sometimes you miss 5-6 in a row. That's the nature of that kind of variance, right? And like, and that's the thing, like it was one of those weird games where like we look at it as like, oh, look at this, KD and Bradley Beal, they shot the Suns into a win in Denver. It's like they also damn near shot themselves into a loss. And during like the Nuggets, like they had a 12-0 run at the end of that game where they got great looks every time down the floor and forced the Suns into difficult shots every time down the floor. And if KD doesn't make his textbook high hesitation 3 on the right wing or left wing, that game's over. So like my thing is like I think a Suns series with Denver would go exactly like it did last year. I think they'd have a game. I think they'd have a game or two where both of the all three of their core guys shoot super, super well. But at the end of the day, the fundamental problem in that matchup is Denver's going to get great shots every single game. And for Phoenix, they're going to get tough shots every single game. It's just a question of whether or not they can make them. Now, that said, like when I look at biggest threat, the Suns are encroaching on the Clippers for me in that department. I really do think like the Suns are one of the best like chances to beat Denver. I just am so high on Denver, I would make them a substantial favorite against everybody in the conference, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think a big part of that is Jokic is the best player in the world, and I think the gap is actually widening. If you watch, like it really is. And then the way the roster is constructed around Jokic, I mean, that makes it even tougher.
Can I ask you a question? Because every once in a while I get in trouble. You're always the guy that kind of like has my back a little bit when I get into the burner. Like, remember when I had the Jalen Brunson over John Morant take over the summer? Yeah. Which, by the way, I mean, like Jalen Brunson has been so good this year. Anyway, like I got in trouble the other day, like 2 weeks ago, because I said Jokic's peak, the level he's at right now, is higher than the peaks that KD and Steph reached in their career in terms of dominance of the league. And every KD and Steph fan was ready to kill me. What was your take on that? Do you think Jokic is reaching a level of individual dominance that's higher than what Steph and KD reached?
I think KD for sure. I think Steph's 2017 season when he was the unanimous MVP, that was kind of like a ridiculous peak. But who would I rather have on my basketball team? Jokic. Me personally.
Well, to clarify really quick, though, like, so for instance, Steph in 2015 won the title, but that was not a dominant playoff run. Like LeBron probably outplayed him in that NBA Finals series. Steph was really good. He played like a superstar. He played like a top tier superstar, but like that wasn't a dominant playoff run. It was just he came out on top. 2016, obviously not a dominant playoff run. 17, 18, it's just always hard to say because like the two of the top 3 players in the world were on the same team. 2022 was one of those playoff runs where like, during the same playoff run, we thought, like, because Giannis almost single-handedly beat the Celtics without Chris Middleton, remember? Like, Steph won the title that year, and I do believe he deserved to be recognized as the best player in the world after that 2022 season, but it wasn't like a dominant, like no one's kind of in the same tier kind of thing. We left last year's playoff run like, oh, he just ripped through everyone. He's just better
Yeah.
than everyone.
Yeah.
Like, this is different, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, his gap between him and the rest of the league is closer to like Jordan's gap between him and the rest of the league more than like Steph and KD. I mean, Steph and
Mhm.
KD were always playing with Bron, and you could always say Bron was the best player in the league during those years.
Yeah, well, that's the way I look at it. I remember the last time I remember feeling this way was LeBron during that like 2012 2013 stretch. Because like again, even for LeBron, from like 2014, remember it was the KD MVP year. From 2014 to 2020, I still think LeBron was the best player in the world, but I thought KD and Steph had encroached on his territory enough that it was like at least a conversation. You know what I mean? To where it's like Steph fans legitimately believed he was better. You know, KD fans legitimately believed he was better. You might find the occasional national guy who would say one of those guys is better. But I think if you polled NBA fans, 90+% right now would say Jokic is better than everybody. If you polled NBA personnel, I think like 95% or more would say that Jokic is. I think this rivals that stretch with LeBron where he was like won the title in 2012, led the World Cup team or the Olympic team, then won in 2013. In 2013, he should have won unanimous MVP. Remember that was the Gary Washburn voted for Carmelo year. So like that to me is the last time we saw a stretch like this where it's like, oh, this guy's just better than everybody. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And so I just wanted to give Jokic that credit because like I do think what he's doing right now is exceptionally rare and is in like a pretty crazy stratosphere.
yeah. Not to get too crazy, but I had Adam Maras on the pod, and I talked to him about like, is Jokic's GOAT window still open? And he believes it is. I mean, he's a Denver Nuggets guy, but I'm saying like if he wins 5 or 6 more, I mean,
He's 29, so that's
yeah,
the one
that's
tricky
tough.
thing.
Yeah,
But
that's
like,
tough.
let's say, but if he in the let's put it this way: if he got a three-peat, when we haven't seen that since the
Yeah,
Kobe Shaq Lakers, if he got a three-peat in this era,
right.
now we're talking about like because I don't think he's in a similar situation to LeBron where like he has no chance to get 6 titles. I don't think just because of age related stuff. And honestly, too, like you got to remember he's on a team with some guys that have some injury histories with Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. too. That's always something to keep in mind. They also have they're gonna eventually have to do some form of soft rebuild, and that's where a guy like Peyton Watson could be massively important. But like, yeah, like if he won, let's say he won 4 titles and there's a three-peat in there. So like he wins this year and next year, then maybe misses 2 years and then wins a fourth. And like he's gonna win his third MVP this year. Like who's the last guy to have 3 MVPs? Like it's been a it's LeBron, right? So like
Right.
we're entering.
Bird had 3 in a row.
Yeah, Bird had
Yeah.
3 in a row.
Yeah.
And there's a case Jokic should have had 4 in a row. I mean, I thought he kind of punted the end of last year. So like, yeah, there were. I think it's again. I think there's a very like to get the goat. Just like with LeBron, it's a very slim shot because to me, MJ, like his resume is just so it's hard to even fathom like what his resume looks like. So like, it's a hard territory to encroach on, but I would agree that it's open. He just needs to Jokic needs to continue this dominance over the next 4 to 5 years is basically the path.